Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started because we know that we have open house, and so you all have to make your way to the classes. And so we're going to start off by introductions. My name is Rose Mitchell. I am the counselor for your students if your last name is A through K, and this is Mr. Millette.
Hello, Mark Millette, and I have students with the last names L through Z.
Good evening. I'm Mrs. Sanders. I'm the 11th grade administrator here. I'm one of the assistant principals. Thank you for coming tonight. Just a couple quick things, and you're in good hands tonight. They'll be able to go over a lot of information, but just a couple little quick things I wanted to mention. On September the 17th, if you picked up that little save the date, I encourage you to attend. There's going to be a lot of good information about the ACT state testing graduation pathways. That's a big topic, especially junior year for students thinking about life after high school. And those are kind of some big concepts and big ideas that we want to make sure to go over. So I encourage you to attend. If you can't, you can always email me and I can give you a lot of information. Throughout the year, if you ever have questions about your students or about testing, always please feel free to email me, just to have open communication. And lastly, I also want to encourage you tonight at open house, like if you have any other questions or just as anything comes up this year, to email, because I want to make sure to always make sure you and your students feel supported. It's kind of interesting that we started with them as freshmen and now they're juniors, and I've seen a lot of the students mature, and it's just really neat to start seeing them just excited for their future. So I'm excited to be with them. So again, feel free to email me, ask me any questions tonight, and please come to the meeting on September the 17th if you're available. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders. So for most of you know, last year we did a reorganization of our counseling department, and obviously we had a lot of questions surrounding that. What I can tell you is that when we are split up by grade level, we are able to be more focused on our students' needs and be more available. This is the first year I've not had seniors, and it is refreshing to just be able to deal with my juniors. And so Mr. Millette and I are going to be able to spend a lot of time with your students this year, and so hopefully you will see those benefits. I've worked in both the alphabet setting and the grade level setting, and so I can definitely see a difference. For those with multiple children, I know that presents an added layer of communication with different people, and so we apologize for that, but we really think this is best for our students. So as tonight we're going to hit on some things. I'm going to hopefully not rush through too much, obviously knowing that we have the timing piece where you all need to go to classes, but we are going to talk about communication, the importance of junior year, college admission factors, rigor and balance, Overgrad, which is the software that we use, the college website coming, along with this year visiting college campuses, and then important dates in ACT and SAT. As we're going through the evening, I know tonight we will talk a lot about college, but I want you to understand that we want to focus on all post-secondary options. Our students are we have a diverse mix of students. We have some students who have aspirations to go to a four-year college. We have some students where maybe they don't really enjoy school and they're trying to figure out what the next path will be. And so we definitely will meet with your students, and hopefully, if going to a vocational school or going to the military, whatever other post-secondary options are out there, we will talk with them about it, although this night we'll talk a lot about college. Staying in the know. So, we have a lot of modes of communication. Sometimes it may feel like it's over-communicating. I have a fourth grader, and if I get one more newsletter or email, so it is a lot. But we want to make sure that we're making sure that that you all don't miss out on anything. And we also recognize that we are working with a lot of different generations. And so I am from the generation of face-to-face meetings, handouts, and then other people are more like, hey, I just kind of want that quick little communication. I don't have time to read the newsletters that maybe come out every other week. So what we're doing is we obviously will have our newsletters that we have been having for the last few years. They come out every other Monday. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. I'm not even on Twitter, but I'm on Facebook. And so we hope that the students will utilize Twitter to get those communications. But another thing that we're adding this year is Remind. Remind is an app where we can communicate those quick things like, remember tomorrow's the last day to register for the SAT or ACT, or a reminder that we will have the ACT tomorrow. So we're going to try and utilize that because we found that emailing our students isn't necessarily working out because they're bombarded with emails too. And so they want that quick communication. So what we're doing is we are going to have both the students and parents on Remind. And I don't know if you all can see this. I'm a senior citizen, I can't read that, but what we want you to do, we want you to be on Remind too. If you can take out your phones and you're going to text, and if you do it tonight, that's fine. If you want to take a picture of the screen and do it when you get home, that's fine. But what you're doing is you're texting that number. You're going to text that number, and then you're texting in the message, you're writing that code, that @B2H382. We are going into our aviator bells, and we have been setting up Remind with our students, and so we are hopeful that this communication will be helpful for you and for the students. The seniors are using it this year, the senior counselors, and they say it's working out well, and so we wanted to follow suit and do that with our juniors. Thank you. Sorry, I see Mr. Millet's helping me here. So, I don't know how big it is on the copier, but just feel free to take those pictures. Okay. All right, so this is an example of some things you put on Twitter. Sometimes it's just some fun facts. If we're visiting a college, we may take a picture of us there. Then here's like, how to decide what's the difference between early and regular decision. Make sure you get all your course requests in by May 15th. So that's an example of a couple of tweets that we have out there. We can embed videos in there, how to write a strong college admissions essay. So those are some of the things that we're doing on Twitter as well as Facebook. And then we have our counselors page. I don't think I mentioned that on the website. There's a lot of good information. When we've gone into Aviator Bells, we've shown student opportunities where they can volunteer, where they can find a job, different Explorers programs. And so it is definitely a lot of valuable information on the website as well. All right, importance of junior year. Whew. Okay, so a lot of students sometimes are like, I know this is such an important year, and why do you think it's so important? I don't know, everybody says it's really important. So, but the thing is, the main thing is that this is the last year where the grades that they earn will be calculated into the GPA that's being sent to the colleges in the fall. And so that's also the year where they're taking the college admissions test, the SAT and the ACT. And so there is a lot that's happening. We recognize how the stress level and mental health is coming into play, and so we definitely talk to our students about balance. We don't want them to be overwhelmed, but we also know that this is something that we can't there's no way we can hold them from it. This is the stage where they're at. I mean, you all are experiencing this. They're getting their license, they're driving, some of them are working, and so they're kind of developing that independence. And so junior year is a big year. We are going to talk to the students about college research as well as career research. We all know that, well, let me ask this question. What do you all think the most popular major is in college? Undecided, okay? And so even though we know that's the most popular major, we still want the students, we tell the students, you don't have to know where you're going to end, but we want you to know where you're beginning. And so we want you to look and research at different careers, look at different colleges. When the college representatives come this year, sit in on some of those meetings. And so we want them to make sure they're doing that research. Also, student activities and opportunities, whether it's the volunteering, the clubs that they've been involved in. The student activities is going to be, this is the last year for all of that to kind of happen. The ACT and SAT, and then as I said, this is the last year, that cumulative GPA before they are going off to college. Okay, the factors in college admissions. When we talk about the GPA is, everyone kind of wants to know, is it the weighted or unweighted, or what are they looking at? We send the weighted grade point average. But what I will tell you is that because the colleges have to deal with so many high schoolers throughout the country who weight so many different ways, like you might talk to a student who's in Arizona, their GPA might be 6.5, and you're like, how did they get that? Because they have a different weighting system. And because the colleges know that they have different weighting systems, sometimes they will have to normalize that weight, because obviously you can't compare our 4.0 scale to a scale that has 6.5. And so and some of them may just take out the electives and look at just the college prep or academic classes. But that GPA, we send the weighted GPA, and then the college may just take it at face value, or they may normalize it so that it can be consistent for all of the students that are applying to their colleges and universities. The grades in the academic classes are very important, along with the college admissions test, the SAT and ACT. A lot of schools are going to test optional. We just found out this year Xavier's test optional, but even though some schools may be test optional, we still think it's important for our students to take those college admissions tests. And then they can decide if it's a test optional school whether or not they want to send those scores. The other thing that comes into play when they're determining those admissions, and when we're talking about this, understand that because there are over 3,500 to 4,000 colleges out there, there are some schools that are able to take more of those things into consideration. They're able to consider all of the factors that we have listed. And to just be honest, there are some schools that just by the sheer number of applicants that they have, they're only going to look at those top 3. They're just going to look at that GPA and test score. But the thing that we try to communicate to parents and to students is there is a college out there for you. You have your dream school, and sometimes you may have a different way of getting to that dream school, okay? But there is a school out there for everyone. But some of those large universities, they are just going to, you will go on the tour and they'll tell you, no, we take a comprehensive look at all of our students, and we go through all of it, but we can look at our data and we see this GPA, we see this test score, and boom, we don't have any students below that that's accepted. But that is going to be the minority. The majority of colleges, because there's so many out there, they are going to take the other factors into consideration, which will be, obviously, the rigor of the high school curriculum is important, but we have to talk about the appropriate rigor. As I said, we have a very diverse student population, and so if a student is struggling, it would not make sense for them to try and load up with some of those rigorous and challenging classes and not do well in those classes. So it's appropriate rigor. And in addition to that, then they look at the essay and demonstrated interest. This is something recently that has come into play. This for some of the smaller or more selective competitive schools. They have a way of tracking, like for example, if you've gone to their college or university to visit, they say, okay, you're really interested. If the college rep comes and you have made sure that you come and see them when they're here at the school. or if they have an evening meeting at a hotel or something. Like I said, there's some of the more competitive universities that will offer that, but they will kind of track that. And like I said, it's just it's a new thing, but what's happening is because of the common application, the number of applications have increased. But at the colleges and universities, their yield has gone down, meaning it's hard for them to predict how many students are going to attend, because they know that, hey, we may be on their list, but we need to kind of know we're top on their list. So for some of the more selective schools, that demonstrated interest will come into play. So we just wanted to put it out there. Every school doesn't use it, but we think that it was important to mention that. And then the recommendation letters and then the extracurricular activities. One thing about extracurricular activities, they are looking for quantity, not quality. So many times our students get caught up in they want to be a member of this club and that club and do X, Y, and Z. And colleges are recognizing that they feel like students aren't enjoying high school anymore, and you kind of say, where's it coming from? Is it coming from you because you have a more competitive, you're more competitive school, or is it coming from the students, coming from the parents, or just society in general? But I even was talking, one college rep said that they changed their admissions question, as far as like, you'll see when they have the essays, they're asking, some of the schools will ask a supplemental essay question, they ask the question like, what's your favorite theme song, and tell me why that is. They said, we really just wanted to put the fun back in it. And so a lot of the schools want to try and get to know the student. They don't want to they know it's only 24 hours in a day. And so focusing on the quantity, not the quality, the quality, not quantity of the activities is important. I already talked about balance. As I said, we want to just make sure that we want them to really enjoy this time. And I know it's so hard. It's easy for you to say that if they're feeling the pressure from so many places, but we want them to have that balance. Their life should just not be about just the academics. We want them to enjoy. And when they choose the activities, hopefully they're choosing something that they enjoy and they have a passion for. So the balance is important, and then the realistic rigor, I talked about that a little bit, just making sure that they're taking courses that are appropriate for them. Demonstrated interest, I talked about that already. Okay, now the tough part. We want you all to partner with your student, partner with them. And what I mean by that is trying to make sure that they experience some of those uncomfortable things. Because part of what we're doing is trying to prepare them for life beyond high school. I've been doing this for 23 years, and it is, sometimes some people think the predictors of success in college has to do with the GPA and the test score and how smart someone is. And you know what? It's really sometimes just about being able to push through, being able to have those comfortable moments, whether it's a class where they are having difficulty. Just try not to rush in and save the day. It's very hard, but we're hoping that the time for them to experience this is when you all are here with them. And if there's something they can come to you, you all can partner with them to help them problem solve, versus them experiencing it when they go away to school. Because at that point, they will not have that safety net there, they won't have you all there, and then sometimes their path will be very different, I think, because they just haven't developed that, I guess, those coping skills and mechanisms, okay? And so we're just trying to make sure we're partnering together to just let them know that it's okay to feel uncomfortable. Stress is a part of life. That's something that we cannot take away from them. But if they never experience it while they're with us here in the high school, then when they go off, it could be tough for them to react to some of those setbacks. All right, I think this is Mr. Millett kind of taking over for overgrad.
Yeah, let me actually use the clicker first. Okay, something that Rose and I talked about as we started this year was to be a little more intentional about using overgrad. And to so Overgrad is a platform that we have here that both students and families can use to search and to learn about colleges and careers. And we talked a little bit about it last year, and we're planning on meeting with students in individual groups, like smaller groups, maybe between 3 to 5 students. And this is something that we really want to focus on, is just the Overgrad part. I feel like there's a lot of facets that they can find helpful as they're exploring of colleges and the career elements in that. I feel like this is going to be kind of a pathway that can help lead into some of the college rep visits that we will have here, and then going out and actually visiting the campuses and starting to get an idea of what might be the right fit, because everybody's going to be a little bit different on what that fit is going to be, and it just can't come from us, and it just can't come from you. They have to be a part of this process. So I think this is a platform that can be helpful with that. So if you go on to the counseling website, you can access Overgrad that way, as into to sign up as a parent as well, like a parent account. And so that we will be seeing students up until the 13th during their baby bells to make sure that they know how to get into their Overgrad account. I would like to think that all of them do, and that they spent their summer reviewing all of these things in Overgrad, but I'm also realistic as well. So this is the example of what a student profile would look like. And what's nice about this is that you can search a lot of different colleges. There's a ton of data that's in there, and we also add in the GPA. We do update that, and then we also put in the test scores so that students can see the profile and have an idea of kind of where they're at, and then can search for colleges based upon that. And that students can also adjust the filters as well. So maybe they might be searching for a certain size school, or they might be searching outside of the state of Ohio, or maybe they're searching by major, or maybe they're not sure about major. So they can take a career interest inventory, and that might then kind of show other potential professions that could fit into that major, and vice versa. And so this is just an example of what one of the careers would look like. And then the same thing with the college research piece. Let's see, students can also add in potential grades that they think that they may have, and then can kind of see how that might adjust the GPA and how that might affect schools that might be a fit for them.
And Mr. Millett, excuse me if I might interrupt. Also, when students are following colleges on Overgrad, they can go in and they can analyze the difference between each of those schools, and so it automatically does it for them. And similar to those of you who've been with us for a while, when we had Naviance, they also plot them on the graph based on their GPA and their test score from Sycamore students. And so I think the data from Sycamore students is extremely important, because there are sometimes different criteria if you're at a more competitive school than not so much. So although their average GPA and test scores that they publish, maybe their averages, it's important to be able to see what the track record has been for Sycamore students.
Yeah, I think that we've added the last 8 years, and
10, I think.
so that is, yeah. Okay, so college rep visits, those will be starting in 2 weeks. Let's see, the last couple of years now, we've tried to put the number of colleges visiting to about 40 to 50 schools. Right now we have about 40 schools, and then I know we still have to add a few. I was just on the phone with the University of Cincinnati, and that they are changing their like admissions rep, and so we're still in that process of adding those. Each of those visits are posted on the account or on the websites so that you can see those. This is just kind of like a picture of an example that we had a couple years ago. Students can go in through Google and then can register for those visits, and then they will receive an email the day of the visit as a reminder. And so we have them checking those. We like to have them check that weekly, and we have been talking about that in the Aviator Bells as well. I think it's important that students do go to at least a few visits. I think it's an interesting process to have to kind of talk to like a college rep sit at the table there with them, and that they will sometimes ask kind of students active questions as in, well, why did you come to this visit? What do you think you may want to major in? Tell me about yourself. And sometimes it's interesting to see students' response in those situations. I think it's a good thing, so I would definitely recommend having them visit a couple of different schools. Sorry about that. So since not all of the schools will be visiting us, there will be over 200 schools at the National College Fair, which is going to be downtown at the Duke Energy Center. It's going to be on Saturday, September 14th from 2 to 5. I would recommend going with your student to that, and I would also recommend to pre-register, because if you've been to these maybe 5 to 10 years ago, they give you some kind of a post-it that you have to put all of your information on. If you pre-register, you receive a barcode and can kind of go from school to school, and it's kind of possible to actually get to see all of those different colleges. And then, I'm trying to think, I think the week before is going to be a college fair at Country Day, and so they will have some different schools there as well. I think there's over 100 schools at that. And I would recommend getting there early if possible, because parking can be very difficult. And then at the end of the month in Xavier, there is more of a college fair that's geared more towards the fine arts. So keep that in mind. This kind of goes to the college visit. This was a slide that Ann had last year. And, I still remember being like a senior in college, and I kind of remember kind of standing outside and kind of seeing these visits, and it's definitely what that is. So,
it's one person walking backwards, and guys, this is supposed to be. So yes, it's like that. The one thing I will say about the college visits when they go, and we still get out there and we still visit schools, and we still think it's important for us to see the campus and see how things are changing and to communicate that to our students. But the one tip that I give everyone, when you go on these tours, understand that the person that's giving you a tour, there are things they cannot say, okay? They just cannot say. I would randomly just ask a person, and I'm kind of just that person, I don't mind talking to strangers, and I say, excuse me, tell me, what made you apply to this school? What are the schools you applied to? You know, and so asking them those questions, so you can kind of just hear from someone who, and I'm not saying that the guides are misleading you in any way. I'm just simply saying they have certain things they cannot say, to just talk to a random person who isn't doing this for their, their work-study job or what have you, to just talk to them, I think that would be helpful.
And it's not that the student needs to know what major that they want to study, but maybe they're looking into business. So I would definitely recommend getting in touch with somebody from that specific college within the university to see if you could meet, and or maybe see that building in some of those different areas, because I think that can be helpful as well if students are looking at multiple schools to judge of that. And with the visit, it is an excused absence, so that we just need the documentation from that school, whether that would be someone like with like admission signing, piece of paper or whatnot. PSAT. So that is going to be a little bit different this year because registration is not needed, and it is no cost to you. All of the juniors will take that test, and that's going to be the 16th of October. Let's see, we just had students today took practice ACT, and so I think in some ways too, it's nice to have both of those tests done, because I think there's a lot of times a question of which one do I take, ACT, SAT. I know that I've got a slide up here next that talks about it being, we would like them to take it, we would like them to take both of them. And in that sense of seeing maybe which one that they feel more comfortable with, which one that might be the higher the score, or the percentile of breaking that down, and then that maybe that time is one that you take it again and maybe focus on that. That's kind of what I've always thought in some ways.
Yeah, if I could just tell a personal little story. First of all, as far as whether or not students take the SAT or ACT, it is based on where you live. And I say that because Ohio's an ACT state. That's what everyone hears about. But if you go right next door to Indiana, they only hear about the SAT. They don't hear about the ACT. My little cousin is in Indiana, and so he's a senior this year, and over the summer I was like, I think it's important you take the ACT. What's that? Cousin, I'm doing the SAT. I'm telling you, you need to take the ACT. He took the ACT. When you compare the scores, his ACT score was a higher score. And there's some scholarships that he would not have qualified for that he does qualify for. So I think it's important for students to take both tests. And for the PSAT, remember this year is the year where it qualifies for national merit. And so normally that's if you're scoring in the 99th percentile when there's like a selection index. But for some of your students who are interested in that, just know that this year is the year that the score counts for that.
And then with the ACT, know that we're going to have the official test is going to be in February. And that's for all juniors. Okay, the SAT, we kind of been through that a little bit, but there's lots of options. There's lots of different dates that you can then, I think sometimes people really kind of plan out kind of how and when they, take the test. I think it's going to be different with every student. There might be some that take it multiple times. Others may just want to take it once or twice. I think that becomes kind of a larger discussion, that we're open to having with you guys. Take both tests, And there's a lot of colleges that are test optional too that Rose talked about as well, but I think it goes back through to the research of the colleges and knowing which ones you plan to apply to, and then knowing what some of those rules are.
I'm sorry, I don't think we have this on the slide, but for those students who are applying to the more competitive and selective schools, sometimes they will require the subject test for the SAT, and so we will make sure that when we're where this feedback is coming from. When we meet with your students and they tell us the schools they're interested in, we'll make sure we go to those websites and they can be aware if a subject test is necessary. And normally the students will take that. Typically they take it spring of the junior year, because most of those students are going to be in AP courses, and so like if they're in APUSH this year, then they'll take the subject test for U.S. history in June for the SAT. But not to get into too much detail about that, but I just wanted to put that out there.
And there's the part with the writing, like as well, so that's kind of another component. Don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but there's kind of less and less colleges that require the writing, but like again, go back and make sure that you know what your like specific schools are wanting to require with that. And so when do we meet with your students? So I talked a little bit about the college rep visits, and Rose talked about the Remind app. So we are meeting with students in the next couple of weeks within their aviator belts for that, and then we plan to, for the remainder of the semester, meet in smaller groups. We were thinking about 3 to 5 students and kind of went through some of the overgrad and just kind of meeting students where they're at within that process. And then as we start second semester, we plan to do individual meetings. And then like Rose and I had talked about as well, if you want to be a part of those individual meetings, that would be great. Please reach out to us.
And kind of just, I want to kind of put it out there, when we're meeting with the students individually, if you want to be a part of that meeting, we're planning to make sure we let the students know at least 3 weeks in advance. We have to plan it out. Then if that time doesn't work for you, you let us know, because what we want to do, we have to make sure we're getting to everybody. So when we're meeting with students, we're meeting with them for 30 to 45 minutes, and so we kind of want to avoid meeting with them and then having a separate meeting with you, okay? So we can all meet together, that way we can know you all are having those conversations as well, because communication is going to be key. We want to make sure they're not intending applying to the University of Hawaii and you're thinking University of Cincinnati. So we just got to make sure that you all are having those discussions. And if they are applying to the University of Hawaii, who's paying for that? So we want to just make sure that dialogue is happening. So we know you all have to get to your classes. We are going to be here to answer any questions, but if you can run over and see the signs, we can do that. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it.